Hey guys, Harrison, I'm back at it once again with a brand new video for you, and welcome to the 9th episode now of our team review series. As we're coming towards the tail end of the grid now, I think this is like the end of the second tier. The first tier clearly is the elite three teams: Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, in whatever order you see fit. Obviously Red Bull probably number one in that pile. Then we get to all the mid-card teams: Mercedes, Lotus, Sauber, Force India, Williams. And now we're at the bottom of that pile with Toro Rosso, who were 9th in the Constructors this past year. And let's be honest, it was a pretty disappointing year by their standards, considering they had a whole new driver lineup, they had a different car, and it just didn't work for them this year at all. Why was that exactly? Well, let's see if we can break it down here in this team review. So let's first of all start off with the season of the other Australian in the grid, Mr. Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay kids, here's a question for you. What does Daniel Ricciardo and Pastor Maldonado have in common? Don't know? Simple. They both had a stretch where they had 10 races without scoring any points. Maldonado's was during the middle of the year after he won in Spain. Daniel Ricciardo's was right at the start, starting from Malaysia and working all the way down to Hungary. The good news was he only had one retirement. He did have one really good driving career when he started 21st on the grid and finished 9th. The bad news is he never finished any higher than 9th, despite, you know, a couple of decent grid pole efforts, I should say, where he made Q3 twice. Once in Australia where he started 10th, and the other time in Bahrain when he started 6th, but actually finished 15th. Oh. Yeah, there was nothing really impressive about Daniel Ricciardo's season. He just seemed to scream mediocre to me. Just, you know, like I said, he never finished any higher than 9th. He was only in the points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in total. That's not terrible, but it's 9ths and 10ths all the way through, and that's not particularly impressive, especially from a team that was aiming for that kind of number as a minimum after last year. Overall, if there's one guy in the top 18 of the field that probably deserved to lose his seat more than anyone else, it was probably Daniel Ricciardo, dare I say it. Am I crazy for saying that? Am I being too harsh? I don't know, you tell me. But what was impressive about Ricciardo's year? Somebody? Anybody? Okay, what does JeanEric Vergne, Daniel Ricciardo and Pastor Maldonado have in common? That's right, you guessed it. Another guy who had a 10-race stretch without scoring any points. To be fair though, JeanEric Vergne's season was a fair bit better. I'd say that because, one, while he didn't qualify anywhere near as well as Ricciardo did, he never made Q3 and his average pole position was about 16th. But what he did do, he fought. He was a bit more of a fighter on the track. He only had 4-point scoring finishes, but they were all 8th place, and he always had to qualify outside of the top 10 to get into those race positions. The downside is he also had 4 retirements, which is quite a hefty amount. Not all of them were his fault. For example, the Michael Schumacher crash at Singapore, where he got ploughed into the back of without any fair warning. But Vergne did overall finish much higher than his grid positions suggest. In fact, almost every race he was in this year, he had a net race position higher than where he started on the grid, except for his 4 retirements. That is a sign of a good driver right there. So Vergne, in my opinion, definitely has a place in this sport and definitely had a better year than Daniel Ricciardo did. Was it spectacular by any means? No, he only had 16 points. I mean, that's good for like 17th in the Drivers' Championship. But there are signs of good stuff here from JeanEric Vergne. Definitely more than what you get from Daniel Ricciardo, who was way more inconsistent and had a knack of falling backwards down the grid instead of forwards. If you're finishing higher than where you qualified, that's almost always a good thing.
As for the car grade, I kind of have to borrow an opinion from a friend of mine, the Elusive Kev, who described Toro Rosso in his New Year resolutions video over on the Formula 1 show. His analysis of this made perfect sense, in the sense of, and I quote, "It's not that Toro Rosso got worse, it's that everybody else got better." Williams only had 5 points last year. Thanks for the correction, by the way, on that. I said they had 0 in my last video. That was wrong of me. But obviously, Williams had 70 plus points this year. You know, obviously much more than 5. Force India looked faster. Sauber looked much faster. You know, Lotus didn't have their terrible second half of the season in 2011. In 2012, obviously. So it's clear that Toro Rosso sank all the way backwards, and you know, they just didn't score enough points. I mean, 20 plus points for them is poor by anyone's standards, especially for a team that's stemming from Red Bull. And another status that Kev made that I want to refer to here is that maybe they should break off from being partners of Red Bull, in the sense of having their driver development program isn't necessarily a good thing, in terms of their team could constantly get blown up with new drivers, and they may not necessarily get the best out of the car and the resources available to them, because their team is constantly being changed over and turned over. Staff turnover in any business is never a good thing. But anyway, let me know what you thought of Toro Rosso's season. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to separate Caterham, HRT and Marussia, because there really isn't that much to talk about with them. I might definitely do Caterham in full, because they had a lot to talk about. The other two, not so much. Until then, I've been House101. Thank you very much for watching. Don't feel free to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.